Let's talk about the under 16 social media ban because this week the e-safety commissioner spoke at the National Press Club and made this observation about the big tech companies.
Very few of these technologies and platforms were created with children in mind or with safety as a primary goal. Today, safety by design is not the norm, it is the exception. Very few of these platforms and technologies continue to focus on engagement of profit. User safety is now being demoted, dumped, or deprecated altogether. So while the tech industry regresses backwards, we must move forwards.
Tim, it's hard to disagree with that, but is banning under 16s from social media the right course of action?
Yeah, I suppose we maybe want to just wind back to last year when the legislation came in, which was about, yeah, effectively, at least on paper, banning 16-year-olds from social media, under 16s from social media. Now, clearly, what we're still seeing are lots of practical issues about is it possible, but I suppose
Yeah.
what it does is it gives parents a weapon in the armory. You asking for my opinion on whether I think it's the right thing. Yes, I do. I think there's plenty of evidence that the human brain has developed over millennia to the stimulation we had, growing up on the savannah or whatever, evolving over, many millennia. Suddenly, this massive system for making people addicted to that dopamine hit of content and approval and all of those things that social media brings brains, I mean, let alone under 16s. I sometimes think maybe we should make it for under 60s.
That's a fair point. But look, I disagree with the ban. I think as a parent, that should be my choice, whether I let my kids go on social media or not. She has a point about what the tech giants want. They just want us to consume. They manipulate their algorithms. They're no good at dealing with conflicts. Like if someone comes out and attacks me, I have no recourse. I can't get them blocked if they defame me or anything like that. This isn't just an under 16s issue. It's an all platform issue. So if the Australian government put rules in that force these tech giants to change the behavior on their platforms and give better outcomes for people who had grievances, I'd be right behind that. This just seems like a simplistic idea. And now we're talking about YouTube. She said she wants YouTube to be part of the ban. YouTube's obviously come out and said bad idea. And it is a bad idea. Kids use YouTube for educational and entertainment.
Yeah, hey, I mentioned earlier sitting on the plane reading the ACCC Digital Platforms Inquiry report. One of the central things in there is just making that point, as the ACCC has for a number of years, as the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, that the platforms have too much power. It's not a fair playing field. So effectively, certainly at the moment, they almost get to do what they want. That's the argument. And the issue with these big platforms is not going to accuse them of being immoral, but they're certainly amoral. It doesn't really matter to them. Doing the right thing comes quite a long way down.
Well, you actually made the point in your newsletter where you said years ago you were on the side of the big tech, but now you're on the side of the government because big tech hasn't done. I don't want to paraphrase you, but it seemed to be that you thought big tech hasn't done the right thing.
Yeah, look, and probably the one that I put back on that is I'm not sure I'd necessarily position myself in the same camp as the government, because my argument is that the government hasn't actually overall um, been particularly strong at creating a level playing field for the platforms. And actually, and in fairness, that's governments all around the world, not just the Australian government and not just Labour. It was broadly the same story under the coalition before that. But yeah, it feels like where we have existing now with all of the major platforms. So in the day we were talking about Facebook when it comes to advertising, Google, which includes that as the owner of YouTube, but also the likes of TikTok coming through now and potentially the big AI platforms, is market failure. Those platforms become too strong that no one individual can stand up against them. So that then takes governments to do that, and it's really tough. It's a moving target. These guys lobby hard. They've got longer memories and work on longer spans. So each time a government begins to make progress, well, the government probably changes and they hang on in there. So it feels like over time we edge towards a little more kind of regulation around them, but we're always just a little bit behind the eight ball. And hey, every year that goes by without any of them paying very much local tax is another year that's bad for the economy.
Could not agree more. And when I was watching Leo Puglisi from Six News, when he was fronting the Parliament when they were questioning this, when they were questioning all the different players, those politicians, a lot of them just seem to have no idea.
Fun, insightful interviews from a washed-up producer with nothing to lose. Night to night, but night to night, but night to night. It's good night from but night to night.